Why I left the United States. There's so many reasons why I left the United States. It'll take me a while to tell you all of them, but I'll give it a try. The United States was in perpetual war. Vietnam, Panama, Grenada, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Serbia, etc., etc. Guatemala. So they're wasting money we don't have on things we don't need. I guess there's nothing much to say about that. Causing trouble all over the world. Making people hate us. Wasting tax dollars. You know, I used to protest when I lived in the United States against the wars. For what? They didn't do any good. We never changed any policy. I think most people in the United States don't want war. But of course, the United States isn't really a democracy now, is it? You have the elites that profit off of war. And it seems like somebody else is running the government. The politicians are listening to somebody else. I have to admit, I made a lot of friends at these protests. They're probably still in the United States protesting, wasting their time. I remember I missed a couple of meetings one time because they'd get together once a week to watch movies and things. And I remember I'd go out of the country and travel around, and some of the people told me that one guy would show up and they figured he was one of these agitators, one of these undercover people who wanted to stir things up and make them do all kinds of crazy violent things, and nobody was buying it. So that leads me to number 2, the surveillance state. You know, the other day I called an old friend, somebody I'd known for about 30 years. He was a foreign-born physician. The guy was very anti-imperialist because, you know, he was from a third world country. He became a physician in his own country and then came to the U.S. and became a physician here. I guess he took the exam. And so he was very anti-imperialist, always talking about all the stuff the United States was doing all over the world. And so he would complain about U.S. militarism. Of course, you know, he was singing to the choir because I already knew all this stuff. So he wasn't telling me anything new. But it was very interesting because he'd always say to me things like, I can't wait to see the system crash so I can see the egotistical Americans suffer. Because, you know, many Americans think that their country's the best or that they're better than all the other people from other countries. And this really would rub them the wrong way. Well, anyway, so I called this guy a few days ago. And the first thing I said to him was, I guess you're going to get your wish. And he was like, "What are you talking about? I never said something like that." And I was telling him, "Of course you did. You'd say stuff like that all the time." "No, no, 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 that wasn't me. That was somebody else. I never said stuff like that." "Are you working for the CIA?" "What? Have you lost your mind? Are you crazy? You know, this phone might be tapped." The guy was so paranoid. And then I started thinking, wait a second. When I lived in the United States, that was always in the back of my mind too. That the government's listening in on my conversation. They're recording my conversation. Man, I'm so glad I'm out of that country. I never think about that kind of stuff now that I live outside the United States. But aside from that, the surveillance state, I find it incredible that the government would imprison whistleblowers, people, ethical people that are pointing out the bad things that the United States is doing. Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Thomas Drake, etc. This next thing really didn't annoy me much, but whenever I interacted with the police, I could tell that they needed to be better trained. Because the police in other countries, and I've traveled to many countries, treat me a lot better. So anyway, the third thing is police mistreatment. Police bad behavior. It seems like the police in the United States demand respect. If you don't give them respect, you might have trouble. Now, I don't know if it's because they're dealing with a very violent criminal element and it calluses them, it jades them, it makes them a little more rough than they normally would be. Whereas in other countries, maybe they're not dealing with such a violent element. So, I don't want to blame the police, but then again, I don't want to say that maybe it's the fault of the general public. So, but I'll throw that in there, that I found the police to be much better behaved when I've traveled. Another thing is uncontrolled border migration. Now, this also is something that really doesn't bother me, because I don't know if the people who come across the border, I'm sure there's a lot of people that come across the border just to work, and they work for very low wages, and they do work that Americans don't want to. So, I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage. I know that there's a lot of bureaucracy in the United States, and it could be very expensive if you come over and you want to work. But there might be some criminal element that comes across the border too and causes trouble. So I'm not sure about that. All the illegals that I've met in the United States have all been very hard-working, upstanding citizens. I believe in a meritocracy. I believe everybody should have the same rights, should be able to have the same opportunity to get the job that they want. And that's the way the United States has been for a long time, and I think for the most part is. But third wave feminism, where women are good and men are bad, is going to ruin the country. It's just this mentality. It's crazy. So there seems to me that there's too many women with a bad attitude, blaming their problems on men. You know, a lot of these women think men aren't needed in society. But meanwhile, men do the construction of bridges, buildings, roads, houses, almost all the scientific innovations are done by men. Not to mention men do the dirty jobs, the dangerous jobs, you know? Men do the sanitation work. They fix the cell towers and build the cell towers. Very dangerous job. Deep sea fishing is done by men. Another very dangerous job. So if you ask me, third wave feminism is it's a little crazy. They're still advocating special privileges for women because they feel that women are being discriminated against. It's absurd, crazy. You know, women are 60% of college students, 60% of graduates from universities. All right? Meanwhile, men are 93% of workplace deaths, even though women are now the majority of people in the workforce. 80% of the suicides are men. Men get 63% more prison time for the same crime. The majority of homeless people are men. Drug addicts, men. Alcoholics, men. You know, it appears to me that it's the men that are suffering. I highly doubt that women are underprivileged. Well, that's only a few of the reasons. I guess there's going to have to be a part 2, 3, and 4 to this. So this will have to be continued. Having left the United States and renouncing my citizenship, I feel I have the experience to help other Americans do the same. Renouncing my citizenship would turn out to be one of the best economic decisions I would ever make. Not to mention the benefits to my physical and psychological well-being. Today, I consider myself a free man. If you need help leaving the United States, renouncing your citizenship, acquiring a new citizenship, or just someone to talk to help you on this difficult journey, then contact me by email and we can set up consultations. You can also donate to my PayPal account. The information is in the low bar.